rising up. You don't really know I shine. Me, I got something that I need to prove. I cannot lose, nah. Everything I do that really is news. You look confused, why? You are what you choosing to do. Me, I've been making the moves, paying my dues, getting this done with the fam. Y'all know that I am the dude. Bend that low, hit that high, got that hustle, got that drive. One more time, best alive. I want it all, everything mine.
Welcome back to the Football Forecast, and I just want to give a huge shout out to everybody. First and foremost, man, this has been just so much fun for me so far, and this is something that I've always wanted to do. And for those of you who have been following along and watching the show and sending your love, I just want to let you know that it is deeply, deeply appreciated. I don't care, like I said when I started this thing, I do not care if I get 10 views or 10,000 views. I'm going to stay the same. I'm going to keep it real, and I'm just going to shoot you straight. So I appreciate y'all for following along, man. I hope that you like my content, everything that I've been putting out. Whether you agree or disagree is besides the point, but just a different perspective. So if you guys appreciate that, man, for those of you true football fans that want the real shit, y'all are the real ones, and I'm going to keep it going. So I just wanted to say thank you. But with that being said, I got to get down to it. And I hate to do it so soon, but we're only 4 weeks in, and I'm not going to lie, I think it's time to start hitting that panic button. I also think that there's some guys that have been out there who've been making noise that maybe have been flying under the radar, or maybe not. But this is going to be the first smash or pass type of episode, man. So is it time to hit the panic button on these guys, or is it time to pony up the dough and go get them? So I got 3 guys per position, quarterback, running back, wide receiver, and tight end, that you need to hit the panic button on. And I've also got 3 guys at each one of those positions that you need to go pony up the dough ASAP and do whatever you got to do to get them on your roster. So let's get into it, man. First of all, the quarterbacks. The very first quarterback that you need to hit the panic button on is Justin Herbert. He continuously goes under the radar for how piss poor his performances are. His team doesn't necessarily win because he's only throwing the ball 20 to 25 times a game. When he does throw it, it looks like shit. Their wide receivers, for the most part, are healthy. And this man's only thrown over 200 yards one time this season. And yeah, I give the rookies a lot of shit, but there's zero excuse here for Justin Herbert, man. Y'all need to hit that panic button. The second quarterback, Caleb Williams. And I've called it before the season started. And I've already seen just a mass exodus from people on ESPN who are dropping this guy left and right. Let's face it. I mean, even guys like Daniel Jones and Kirk Cousins, Trevor Lawrence, these are guys that are typically on the waiver wires. Geno Smith, they're all gone. And guys like Caleb Williams, specifically Caleb Williams, are being dropped, and for good reason. They completely mishandled the salary cap in Chicago. They put things first that should not have been their priority. They did not get him an offensive line, and they spent all the money on the weapons. That's great. He has 0 time. Some of it's his fault, some of it's not. But either way, hit the panic button on Caleb Williams. The third quarterback is Anthony Richardson, better known as AR5, better known by myself as IR5. The man cannot stay on the field. He's the only quarterback in the NFL to have a less than 50% completion rate. The man's sitting at 48, 49% after 4 games. Well, 3.5. So even when he's on the field, yeah, he gives you chunk plays and does some spectacular things because he's a freak athlete, but he's not a quarterback. Probably never will be. And if he can't stay on the football field, he doesn't need to be on your roster. Joe Flacco looks better anyways. Hit the panic button. The 3 quarterbacks that you got to pony up the dough for, if you haven't already, at least try to go get Jaden Daniels from whoever has him. Do whatever it takes. We said last season that we would never see another C.J. Stroud again. And although he's not quite doing it the same way, because C.J. Stroud was just burning people through the air, he is similarly protecting the football, making good decisions, playing confident. Teammates love him. He seems to really be responsible for the confidence that is clearly showcasing on the field in Washington, man. He's averaging 30.1 fantasy points a game. It's first in the NFL as a rookie. It's incredible. Go get him. The second quarterback that you got to pony up for is Baker Mayfield. He sits somewhere in the middle as far as pass attempted, but pass per attempt, pass completions, this guy's towards the top. And I don't know what it is about the fit in Tampa Bay, but ever since he got down there, he is just a brand new Baker. And obviously, it helps when you're throwing it to Mike Evans and Chris Godwin. Jalen McMillan's hurt right now. He'll be back. He's going to be their home run hitter. And Rachaad White and Bucky Irving, between the two of them, although they're not getting much love in the ground, they're easy targets out of the backfield. And as of last week, he finally started delivering the ball to K-Dot and getting his tight end involved. This is a very, very capable, explosive offense, and they're going to have to be because their defense is terrible. Go get Baker. The third quarterback that you got to add is Geno Smith. Talk about a comeback player of the year. And he's not even coming back from anything in particular other than just basically silent mediocrity for years. And yet here he is, leading the NFL in pass attempts. He's throwing 40 pass attempts a game. And a lot of that's because both of his running backs can catch out of the backfield. He's got two tight ends in Farrell Brown and Noah Fant that are very capable targets. But let's just admit that he probably, when healthy, has a top 3 wide receiver core. You could even argue that it's the best wide receiver core. Off the top of my head, I think the only wide receiver core all around that I would put up against this would be Chicago's, maybe San Francisco's, but without a doubt, Seattle is making it an emphasis game in and game out to sling the football, and why wouldn't they? Geno Smith looks phenomenal. As far as the running backs go, man, you got to hit the panic button on Christian McCaffrey. I'm not sure that he will ever return to a football field. This man has tendonitis in his Achilles in both of them. He just went over to Germany and spent time with the specialist. I listen to the Coach JB show. They've got a doctor on there that comes on the show every Monday morning, and he talks about all the injuries for these key fantasy players that everybody wants to know about every Monday morning. You can catch JB live from 9 a.m. to 12 p.m. If you are not into vulgar language and just some off-the-wall shit, then don't listen to it because Coach is crazy. But the show is really good, and when the doctor comes on, he's legit. He's worked with athletes, specifically NFL athletes, for a long time. When he says that Christian McCaffrey's injuries are just never going to go away, once this develops, not only is an Achilles tear looming, he'll never feel 100% in either one of his legs again. If you're in a dynasty league or a keeper league or something, I mean, you have multiple keepers. Of course, keep him on your roster. Don't drop him. And I'm not really encouraging anybody to drop him right now. But as far as the panic button goes, you need to start looking for alternatives immediately. If you think that you've just been able to use guys like Justice Hill or Alexander Madison or whoever to get by for the meantime, you can't. It's going to be long term. McCaffrey's likely not going to be out there anytime soon. Zamir White, I don't know what is going on in Las Vegas, but this is a running back that averaged 25 touches a game and over 100 yards rushing per game over the last 4 games, at least last season. It really did not look like Las Vegas was going to skip a beat when it come to their running game and their production out of the backfield. But not only is he not performing well, they're not running the ball or putting any emphasis on the run game, period. And they didn't go get Tom Brady, okay? They got Gardner Minshew. I'm not sure why they're throwing the ball 35 to 40 times a game. It doesn't make sense. But fact is, Zamir White's not performing. I straight up dropped him in my league. But I was high on Zamir White and I whiffed. So, panic button. And lastly, you gotta hit the panic button on Zeke. Okay? I think that we're about 14 minutes away from Dalvin Cook being activated. Dallas is not happy at all. Mike McCarthy is on the hot seat. Dak Prescott can drop back and throw it 50 times a game, and that's all fine and good, but their defense is underperforming. For teams that have bad defenses or defenses that are underperforming, they're going to do way worse if they're out of breath. And when offenses have these quick 3-and-outs, like Dallas has had a lot of this year, that is a lot of time. That's a lot of pressure that you're putting on your defenses. The only way to help them out is to keep them off the field, to keep some of these explosive offenses that you're going to go against off the field. They've got to get their run game going. Rico Dowdle has stepped up. He's looked a hell of a lot better. But, man, Zeke is just, he's done, man. He's done. And I think that we're about 14 minutes from them upgrading Dalvin Cook anyways. And once that happens, he's toast. The 3 running backs that you got to go pony up for immediately, obviously, the first one has got to be Jordan Mason. And honestly, I feel embarrassed that I spend the amount of time that I spend on following football, specifically the NFL, and all the transactions that take place. And I knew nothing about this guy. Nothing. When he was taken, I said, who the fuck is that? Who's Jordan Mason? Like I'm some fantasy scrub. We all know CMC, of course. But I'm thinking about Elijah Mitchell. I'm thinking about Isaac Guerrero, the rookie out of Louisville. These are all the running backs that most people affiliated with this offense. Of course, all of them are hurt. But, man, somebody knew about this Jordan Mason guy before I did. Kind of chaps my ass now looking back on it. Totally whiffed. I like to get the beat. I like to get the heads up on this type of stuff. Put in offers, do whatever you got to do, man. He's legit. I'm not even sure at this point they need to bring Christian McCaffrey back. I imagine there's some teams that would give a pretty penny. Next, you got Kareem Hunt. Something about Kareem Hunt and Andy Reid, they work so well together. Kareem Hunt had a Pro Bowl caliber season his first year. All pro type of season. His first year as a rookie with Andy Reid. Then he had some drama take place and he, spent some time in Cleveland. But, man, this guy's making the most of his return trip to Kansas City. I tell you what, Carson Steele came in one time, fumbled, and we didn't see the boy the rest of the game. Because Kareem Hunt can still do it. Run, catch, block. He did everything. So, I'm glad that Carson got his moment. Pretty cool. His sister was getting married, and they were watching the game from the wedding. That's a cool story, but I think you can hang your hat on that, man. You got your 15 minutes of fame. Step aside. Kareem Hunt's coming through, man. Pony up whatever you got to do to go get him. And lastly, man, Bucky Irving has taken over this backfield. I know I didn't get the beat on Jordan Mason, but I got ahead of everybody on Kareem Hunt, and I drafted Bucky Irving. Just looking at the draft board, looking at the rookies coming in, man, I predicted that Bucky Irving not only was going to the best offense, the best situation for him to succeed, the best fit, I thought that he'd have the most opportunities. Rachaad White hasn't had anybody at all behind. I couldn't even tell you who the second or third running back on this team was last season. But now that you've got a real running back, he's taken over. And I didn't think that Bucky Irving would be the type to average 6.5 yards a carry, but the boy's doing it. What little grasp that Rachaad White still has on that starting spot has got to be oh so thin. Hanging on by a thread, buddy. If Rachaad White doesn't pick it up, man, I know for a fact Bucky Irving, before Halloween, will 100% be the premier back on this team. I know it. He's averaging 10.7 fantasy points, and he's only getting probably 12 to 15 touches a game. Imagine if he got the 25-30, like most premier backs do. Moving on to the wide receivers, the first receiver that you got to hit the panic button on is Brandon Ayuk. Not only did this shitbird cause a lot of drama in the offseason off the field with his contract and everything else, he still can't fucking show up to practice right. Got him changing his pants in the middle of the practice because he's the only one not wearing the same color. I mean, something is up. He got his bag, and it's got some pretty good amount of guaranteed money in, and I feel like he's just said, fuck it. I'm rich, bitch. I'll do what I want. He's getting targets. He's getting the looks. He's not doing anything with it. They're not connecting. Brock Purdy's pass percentage, completion percentage to Brandon Ayuk is worse than anybody else on the team. They're not on the same page. Brandon Ayuk is dropping balls. He's not getting open. And he's not finishing the catches. He's not finishing the plays. The explosive plays, the ability to get yak yardage, yards after the catch. What happened to that? Why did they pay you? Can you remind them, please? But for now, I'm hitting the panic button. Not dropping him yet, but I sure the fuck ain't starting him. The second wide receiver that you need to hit the panic button on is definitely Rome Odunze. Man, this is one of the most hyped rookie wide receivers coming out of this year's draft. And when you look at it on paper, you put him in an offense where Keenan Allen and DJ Moore are going to attract the best corners. And then you let an athlete like Rome Odunze roam the seams, come underneath, cross across the middle of the field while everybody else is going the other direction. These types of plays that I expected on paper with a quarterback that everybody told me was a generational talent, none of it's come to fruition whatsoever. And Keenan Allen ain't even been on the field for it. Football's not played on paper. And while everything really does look good and the potential, the opportunity looks there, trust me, I get why it could be exciting. It's just not working. And Caleb Williams has no time anyways to find anybody. So I wouldn't just bench him, I'd drop him at this point. There are so many good wide receivers on the market that are getting a hell of a lot more looks than he is. The only reason that I would keep him is if I was in a dynasty league. And the last receiver that you've got to push the panic button on, don't drop him. Just put him on your bench and hold on to him for a little while. Calvin Ridley, okay? Will Levis looks like absolute hot garbage. And hammered dog shit, had a baby. I mean, what the hell is he doing out there? And to be honest with you, how did he hurt his shoulder? Diving? Non-contact? He made contact with the ground? I know fluke things happen, but Jesus Christ. Everybody talked about how physically he's built like a freak, and he is. He looks strong as shit. You can't land on the fucking grass without blowing your shoulder out? I don't know, man. I think that he was just fine to come back into that game. I also think that they were like, you know what? Mason Rudolph sucks ass too, but can't be much worse than this guy. Point is, Calvin Ridley ain't got a fucking quarterback. So keep him just in case things get better. But Jesus Christ. That offense might not throw for over 150 yards the rest of the fucking season. The first wide receiver that you've got to go pony up for immediately is Jayden Reed. Man, both times that he's been on the football field with Jordan Love, he has averaged 34.3 fantasy points per game. Averaged 34.3 fantasy points. Looking at the first game against Philadelphia and then this most recent game against Minnesota, 34.3 fantasy points. That is astronomical compared to second. Malik Neighbors is leading the NFL, and he's about 10 points less than that. And I'm not saying that if Jordan Love was in the other two, that number would quite hold up. I know that it wouldn't. The more games that you add, that number is going to tend to go down a little bit. I get that. But the point is they've got a connection, and it's serious, man. You've got to go get Jayden Reed. Next up is Wan'Dale Robinson. He's averaging 13.3 points. And I know a lot of you guys are like, whoop-de-fucking-do. But if you go look at his targets per game, or just watch a Giants game, just watch one. I'm not even sure Daniel Jones sees anybody else. So, where's Wan'Dale? Like, that's pretty much what it looks like in the game. So if you've got a hit or miss type of guy, or a guy like Brandon Ayuk or Amari Cooper, that Calvin Ridley, these guys who have either underperformed or just have quarterbacks that got their head up their ass, go get you a safe bet with a guy like Wan'Dale Robinson, who's honestly probably a free agent in a lot of your leagues, because the guy's going to get 8 to 12 targets a game, and that's not changing. The third wide receiver that you've got to go get is Xavier Worthy. So far, he's only averaged 12.8 points per game, and that's largely due to a long touchdown in this previous game and 2 long touchdowns in the very first game of the season. The middle 2 games, not so much. But what happened? They probably had him in a limited role, or at least learning small portions of the offense at a time because he's a rookie, and they expected Hollywood Brown back sooner. They didn't get it. He's getting more snaps. Then Rashee Rice, who's been averaging probably 10 to 15 targets per game, has a catastrophic, more than likely, season-ending injury. Who's left to step up? Fucking Sky Moore? Juju Smith-Schuster? Xavier Worthy's volume is going to explode. The only thing that makes me nervous is his small body frame. I'm not sure how much physicality he's going to be able to handle, but they've got to try at this point. With his speed, you can't really afford to lose his legs. Hopefully he has the ability like Lamar and Jaden Daniels, some of these guys that have the ability to attack the defense, but kind of know when to get down and how to lay down and to avoid taking those big shots. If he can avoid big shots, there's a large volume potential coming his way. And the last position group that we got to get to, man, is the tight ends. Number 1, Mark Andrews. Saying it for 2 years, Mark Andrews does basically nothing. He's been living off of 1, maybe 1.5 incredible seasons. And most of that was really when Lamar Jackson did not understand truly how to be an NFL quarterback yet, how to operate an NFL system. And most quarterbacks like that, if they're smart, tight ends are their best friend. That was Mark Andrews. The only games this year where he's utilized the tight end, it's gone Isaiah Likely's way. Mark Andrews is dropping passes that hit him in the chest. He's become more or less a blocking tight end. A decoy. He's not worth a roster spot anymore. And stop drafting him in the 4th and 5th round. The next 2 guys are very similar, by the way. Dalton Schultz. Dalton Schultz was actually somebody that I was high on. But I did have question marks because he's in a loaded offense in Houston. Before Houston acquired Stephon Diggs, think about last season, they had Nico and Tank there alone. Nico and Tank both got hurt last season. And I think a lot of people are remembering the production that Dalton Schultz had while he was taking advantage of a good situation. Not to mention, Dameon Pierce was a quality, I guess. He's a value type of running back, but he's not a true premier running back like Joe Mixon is. A lot of people didn't really expect C.J. Stroud to do what he did. I believe that Dalton Schultz was still living off of that hype. But frankly, he's just lost in the shuffle with all these new fun toys for C.J. Stroud to play with and get the ball to. Just don't think that Dalton Schultz seems quite as fun anymore. And the last one, probably the biggest tight end bust in the history, at least in recent history, because frankly, tight ends don't really get that much hype coming out of college. But Kyle Pitts coming out of Florida was just like a guaranteed lock. Next Antonio Gates, next Tony Gonzalez, next Shannon Sharp. You think about all the great tight ends in history, that was what Kyle Pitts was going to be, plus the same athleticism as Justin Jefferson. Pretty much how they talked about him. And this dude's like Casper, man. Sure, he's out there, he's a good guy, but can't fucking see him. Quarterback can't see him, fans can't see him. I mean, what a letdown. And lastly, man, the 3 tight ends that you got to pony up the dough for, and this is very important because this is one of the most bizarre years for tight ends ever. Injuries left and right, and the tight ends that are expected to be top dogs, I mean, those aren't scrubs that I just named. Those are 3 of probably the top 6 tight ends that were selected in every draft this season. They're not performing. Top tight ends are not performing. Think about the start that Kelsey got off to. Think about the start that Laporta got off to. I mean, none of these top tight ends are performing, and the rest of them are fucking hurt. If you have not done it yet, go make a move for, first of all, Dallas Goedert. And Dallas Goedert is somebody that, honestly, was living in the shadow of Zach Ertz, and he never really quite came into his own completely. And I'm not sure how it will look when A.J. Brown and Devonta Smith both get healthy again and this offense is back to full operation. But in the meantime, Dallas Goedert has established himself as a serious weapon that defenses are forced to game plan for now. Whereas before it was, we're going to stop these guys on the outside and we'll deal with Dallas. Let them beat us with Dallas. And I'm not talking about the raggedy-ass Cowboys, but I will move on to Jake Ferguson, who's next. You've got to go get this Cowboy tight end. For the most part, Dallas's receivers have been healthy. Dak Prescott just really not clicking with them. He's literally gone to CeeDee Lamb probably 60% of his pass attempts. That's including running backs, tight ends, other receivers. Jake Ferguson is going to be a go-to for Dak the rest of the season. Because, frankly, their offensive weapons suck. They got no running game. Rico Dowdle's okay. He's cool out of the backfield every now and then. But if Brandon Cooks is going to miss any time and Jalen Tolbert's kind of an I mean, I like him, but you know, it's pretty much just CeeDee Lamb. So I think that Jake Ferguson is going to emerge. And the last tight end that you've got to go get, this is going to be quarterback's best friend. Because he's got Justin Fields, who's in the same exact situation that Lamar was in a few years ago. How to be an NFL quarterback yet. He's figuring it out. But Pat Freiermuth has become a favorite. When Justin Fields was in Chicago, if he was looking downfield, he forced it to his superstar, DJ Moore. When he didn't, he checked down to Cole Kmet. It was literally that simple, or he took off. If you just look at what he's done this year so far, when he throws the ball, it is heavily favored towards George Pickens. But when it's not George Pickens, he finds his tight end. Then he takes off. He's still kind of the same guy. And I think that you can trust that Pat Freiermuth is going to continue to get looks from not quite rookie, but he's probably still very much rookie-like. I mean, how much quarterback did he learn in Chicago? When's the last time Chicago had a good quarterback? Pat Freiermuth is going to be his best friend, man. Go lock that guy up. So to any of you guys that have anyone on my panic button list, seriously, do not start these guys until they develop consistency. Don't throw them back in after one good game. Let them reestablish their roles in the offenses. Some of the big name guys that you took in your 4th round or higher, keep them. Don't just drop these guys. But other guys that are replaceable, if you've got quality depth behind them, just let them go. But before you let them go, shop them. Because I'm telling you right now, there are idiots in your league that will bite. You just got to try them. If the first one doesn't like them and says they suck, offer them to the next person. Go down the line till you find what you're looking for. And if all else fails, then drop them. But at the end of the day, you got to sell these guys. And if you're selling them, I just gave you 3 guys to go find. All the guys that I gave you that you need to pony up the dough and go get them, aside from injury, I believe that all 12 of those guys, without a doubt, are going to have a continued role within their offense. All you're looking for is increased opportunities. Don't just look for fantasy points and yards and all that shit. Because they could have 2 catches for 87 yards and a touchdown, and that looks great. But they only got 2 targets the whole game, and one of them they ripped off an 85-yarder. And then that results in 20-some-odd fantasy points, and you look at the other games, and they've got 3, 5, and 2. Happens all the time. Quit buying guys after one spectacular performance, and look for consistent opportunities to touch the football. And with that, I'm out.
How you play the game with the people that writing the rules. Ain't the fame that I'm after when paying the dues. I've been through the pain that's reflected in the attitude. Might be winning now, but the thing is that I had to lose. So go and tell me what you really want to do. And lonely at the top, cause there ain't a lot of room. Ain't no other option, that's all I ever knew. So I'ma get it poppin', you know how I'ma do. I've been down through the blood and the sweat. Guarantee you can know I'm a threat. I've been down through the blood and the sweat, and I ain't close to being done yet.